How y'all doing? All right, talkative crowd today. Well, listen, I want to provide you an ongoing update about the way that Texas, as well as local communities in Texas, are dealing with and responding to the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. There are several updates that I want to provide for you today, both an update about advancements that have been made about the way that Texas is responding to this, but also information about the identification of a new COVID-19 patient in Texas. First, good news is that Texas now has the ability to test for COVID-19. State testing is conducted by public health labs throughout the state that are a part of what is called the Laboratory Response Network. There are 10 public health labs within the Laboratory Response Network in Texas. The labs are in Lubbock, Fort Worth, Dallas, Tyler, El Paso, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and Harlingen. The Laboratory Response Network provides laboratory diagnostics and responds to biological and chemical threats as well as other public health emergencies. The labs that are online as of today and can perform the COVID-19 tests are at the DSHS site lab right here in Austin and the public labs in Houston, Dallas, El Paso, Lubbock, and Fort Worth. The remaining will be online by the end of this month. The state lab can perform approximately tests for 26 patients per day. Houston and El Paso can perform tests for approximately 15 people per day. Dallas and Lubbock can perform tests on approximately 10 patients per day. Once the other public health labs in the state complete the testing validation process and begin testing, the State Public Health Lab Network will be able to process more than 125 COVID-19 tests per day. The COVID-19 test includes a nasal and oral swab taken from the patient. The local public health department then coordinates the shipping of the specimens to the closest public health lab for processing and testing. This new ability to provide testing in the state will shorten the time to get the test results and will help public health take the appropriate steps. Now on to this new case. The first case of COVID-19 in Texas outside of the repatriation efforts that were carried out in San Antonio was announced Wednesday in Fort Bend County. It is our understanding that the person was exposed to COVID-19 while overseas on a trip and did not contract the virus in Texas. The specimens from the individual were tested for COVID-19 at the Houston Health Department laboratory. The Houston lab processed the specimen and reported the results in less than 24 hours. The Fort Bend County Health and Human Services Department is also conducting an epidemiological contact investigation into who the individual might have come into contact with after returning home and before being isolated in a hospital. Texas DSHS is providing assistance to aid Fort Bend County in its conducting of this investigation. There may be future instances of others who may have this same contact that may or may not be disclosed by Fort Bend County at any uncertain date coming forward. Bottom line, though, I want you to know that we are not surprised by cases like this. We anticipated cases like this arising, and we continue to collaborate with local and federal partners to remain prepared to respond to any future cases of COVID-19. A couple of more things. One is our comments to the general public. By and large, the general public is responding to this exactly the way they should be responding to it. They're taking it serious, but they're not panicking. If someone thinks that they may have the coronavirus, they should contact their doctor. The doctor should then contact the local health department to determine if testing should be conducted. All Texans have the ability to slow the transmission of this virus by doing simple things like washing your hands regularly, covering coughs and sneezes, and staying at home if you're sick. Additionally, communities and volunteer groups can work together to mobilize community-driven health efforts, such as sanitizing schools, churches, and other public buildings that may be highly trafficked. Practicing good personal hygiene habits works against other viruses, and it'll work against this one also. A comment about continued state preparations. DSHS is the lead agency in the state's response. DSHS is working closely with the Texas Division of Emergency Management to coordinate and plan for the state response to COVID-19. DSHS and the Texas Division of Emergency Management are working with other state agencies, local health departments, and healthcare providers. DSHS activated the State Medical Operations Center on January 31st. That center responds to requests from local entities and also ensures consistent collection, tracking, and reporting of public health activities and data. The Texas Division of Emergency Management and DSHS are holding twice-weekly meetings of the Texas Emergency Management Council, which is 39 state agencies and institutions of higher education, and those are held at the State Operations Center. They discuss and review state emergency planning documents and how these plans will be implemented and modified during the state's response to COVID-19. Additionally, DSHS leads daily calls with public health authorities and healthcare providers to ensure communication is flowing from state to local providers. These calls have included around 500 to 600 people. These calls began on January the 24th. DSHS has a web page specific to COVID-19 to share up-to-date information regarding this rapidly changing situation. DSHS is encouraging other state agencies to refer questions to the web page or to DSHS to ensure messaging regarding the state response is consistent across all agencies. That web page can be found at dshs.texas.gov/coronavirus/. Once again, that is dshs.texas.gov/coronavirus/. Now, the person who is leading this effort for the state of Texas is Dr. Hellerstadt. He is the commissioner of the Texas DSHS. I'd like for him to make additional remarks.
Thank you, Governor Abbott.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Governor Abbott. I'm John Hellerstadt. I'm the Commissioner for the Texas Department of State Health Services. The Governor just gave you a really excellent briefing and update and status report on where we are. I just want to underscore what he's saying. Among other things, we really need to take this very seriously, and people are. As the Governor said, we're seeing evidence that people are responding appropriately. They have an interest in hand washing and personal hygiene and disinfecting, and those are very, very powerful tools. We call it a novel coronavirus because it hasn't circulated in human populations before, which means there's no population that has a pre-existing immunity, which means that there is the potential for it to spread very rapidly. However, we have very powerful, very effective tools to combat that, and it's exactly the kind of, again, personal hygiene, cleaning, and sanitation that we've talked about. This is what your doctor and your grandma has been telling you your entire life, and it works. So even though this is a novel virus, it's a virus like other viruses, and the kind of things we're asking people to do work against every single germ there is, including the novel coronavirus. So we need to get together and work as a team. As Texans, we need to show the world how it can be done, and we can vastly slow down and mitigate the risk to our communities here in Texas if we all act together. I think it would be great for friends and neighbors and organizations to get out there and be visible in the way in which they're helping to combat this. The new testing capacity is a great boon. It's a great step forward. I think it's a terrific testimony to the kind of technical skill that we have. Still, as good as it is, testing is a very precious resource, and we want to make sure that we're testing folks in a way that is going to best serve to protect the public in Texas. So that's my word for today. Thanks.
Wait, would you stay right here? We'll take some questions together.
Testing is underway potentially for one or more patients out of Austin. We were told we would get those results back really by last night, and as of this morning, we still haven't gotten those results.
You know anything about that?
Tell us about that.
This is testing about a patient in Austin?
Yes,
Right.
or patients
Right.
out of the Austin area.
Sure.
Could you please repeat the first part of your question? I'm not sure I quite understand.
Austin Public Health says a patient or perhaps multiple patients from the Austin area are being tested for coronavirus. They say that I guess the swabs were sent off 2 to 3 days ago, and the results were supposed to be back last night or at the latest this morning. We still haven't heard word, and there are a lot of people concerned, as
Sure.
you can imagine.
Sure.
Do you have any update on that testing?
Absolutely. So thank you.
You want to speak in here? Can you all hear him? Okay.
Understand the question better. Basically, that there's some lab that was sent pending from the Austin area. No one has the results back yet. I can't speak exactly to those. Keep in mind that the testing capacity that the governor mentioned here in Texas is brand new, essentially. And so depending on when those specimens were obtained and sent, they may have gone to CDC, in which case there's a time lag just in getting the specimens to CDC. We know that once CDC has those specimens, they turn them around very quickly, but I can't address the specific testing that you're talking about. I've got to think, though, that the results are imminent.
Would this improve that response, what you're starting today?
Right, I can answer that. And what is starting today is intended to expedite that process. And so we just now have the capability to make sure we can turn around those test results a whole lot quicker.
The patient in Houston, where was he traveling, and did he have any existing conditions?
Don't know about his health status. That would be something for others to be able to release, and we will leave it to others to identify where he was traveling. But I will say it's overseas.
Dr. Abbott, can you just kind of walk us step by step? So, Vice President Pence said that any American can go get tested for this if they want to. Doctors are saying that's not really the case. Folks in Texas, if you think you have symptoms of coronavirus, step by step, how can you go about getting tested and how long will it take those results?
It's exactly the kind of question that I think a doctor is most appropriate, qualified to answer, and we have one with us.
Yes, very good. So that's an excellent question. Really, as far as folks here in Texas, what I would want them to understand is if they're concerned that they might have coronavirus, first of all, have a conversation with their physician. It's still the case that we do not have community spread of coronavirus in Texas. And so you would still have to have had some form of exposure. And that exposure would not be because you're in the community. It would be because of travel or contact with a known proven case of coronavirus. So that's still a very strong set of circumstances that we would ask the physicians to be aware of. If the physician then in their judgment says, I really do want to proceed with seeing whether or not testing is appropriate for this person, we would ask them to contact their health department and we can have a conversation about it. All of the guidelines that we give out are intended to inform professionals, and then those professionals take that information and they use their professional judgment to apply it to any individual patient case. And so we would do the same and help them with that judgment when they ask us whether or not testing is appropriate. As I said, it's terrific that we now have the testing capability more than we had before. It's great that we expect that the turnaround times will be much less, but also, if you can imagine, we're a huge state, and the amount of turnaround and throughput that we have in the testing makes it still a very precious resource. And we want to make sure that that resource is used to the very best effect to continue to protect Texans.
I know it's early, but about how long would it take to get those results back?
Again, you're talking about testing that's done in Texas. How long would it take to come back? It's the same kind of formula, if you will, for CDC. It's getting it here, getting it to our lab. Once our lab has it, we can turn it around rather quickly and get those results back. So any lag would have to do with how far away it came from, when it was shipped, and those kinds of individual details.
So it's quickly days?
I think in most cases, quickly would be days.
Given the limited testing capacity, what is the message to doctors who under CDC guidelines
Again, I think the best thing is call your local health department, consult with them. We understand that practicing clinical medicine is as much art as it is science, and so the guidelines that we can give them are science-based, if you will, evidence-based, but there may be individual situations that they encounter in their practice where a consultation with their local health department will be very helpful in making the decision of whether or not to test.
And in the rural parts of the state that don't necessarily have a local health department, who should they consult?
That would be our regional, our regions, our Department of State Health Services regions. We cover every area of the state, so any area of the state that does not have a city or county local health department, we, the Texas Department of State Health Services, can offer that consultation. So it's all over the state.
A couple more questions.
Governor, a little off topic. South by Southwest starts, I think, now in 8 days. Huge topic of conversation as far as should it go on or not. From your perspective, as you're starting these testing labs, what is your take on it?
Those are strictly local decisions. It's up to the local officials working in, whether it be the city officials or the public health officials, for them to work in collaboration and them to make the right decision. DSHS and Dr. Hellerstedt are available for consultation.
I see that this is a large number of uninsured residents. If the message is to contact their primary doctor, what should we talk about?
And I'll let you take the first crack, but I'll answer it further.
So for individuals who don't have a primary doctor, they can call our helpline that we have at DSHS and see if there's a local resource that might be able to take care of them. FQHCs, clinics that have sliding scale type of payment options or no pay options. So we would hope that they would do that. I guess that's in contradistinction, if you will, of going right to the emergency department. Especially if you're not sick. If you're not clinically ill, there ought to be ways to arrange in advance to get people seen at a variety of resources that exist all over the state.
Are you taking on address the homeless population and how to do testing there?
Well, again, the homeless population right now, since there's no community-based spread, they're not at any increased risk for this problem. When we get community-based spread, I think that'll go into another phase, and we'll see what we can bring to bear to address this particular needs of homeless populations.
So you'll know, addressing the homeless population and something like this is not new for the state because when we were dealing with the Ebola situation, there was a homeless person that needed to be isolated during that situation. So we've been down this pathway before. But let me circle back, and I'm going to say something that will answer several questions. And that is, as you all know, Congress has authorized billions of dollars in funding. The billions of dollars in funding that Congress has authorized will pay for a lot of things. One thing that I anticipate it paying for is to increase even more the number of patients who are going to be able to be tested, the number of test kits that will be available, so that these will be able to be spread further and wider and more prolifically as we go forward. It will also help us address other unique needs, such as the situation about people who don't have insurance, because we as a state want to make sure everyone who may have the coronavirus is going to be tested, period.
Last question, Heather Osborne.
You said, right here, sorry. You said city officials were working to figure out who that Houston area man had close contact with. Will those individuals have to also be placed in quarantine for the 14-day period if they had close contact with that patient?
Sure, I'll let Dr. Hellerstedt answer.
So that's a great question. What will happen is that the investigation to determine what contact took place, what form of contact, whether it places a given individual at risk. That's exactly what public health professionals do. So the decision about how to handle contacts will be handled on a case-by-case basis, an individual basis. So we can't make a blanket statement about everyone who may have been in contact with that individual, because if you're far enough away, for instance, from somebody and you're walking past them, you're not really in contact, for example.
Thanks, guys. We got to run. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we haven't seen any breakdown of the earmarks yet. Obviously, the size of Texas, the population base of Texas should qualify Texas for a larger portion of that than some other states. But we will be seeking as much as possible to address what happened in San Antonio, to address what's happening in Fort Bend County, but to ensure that all of these different regions will have the resources needed to respond to this as cases may arise. And as cases may arise and as further developments occur, we'll be returning for additional briefings. Thank you all very much.
Something like that.